Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee, which this morning is considering a new premises licence application under the Licensing Act for Home House Marine Parade in Penarth. It's Tuesday, the 12th of August 2025. Apologies for the slightly late start. We're starting at 10 this morning. My name is Matthew Swindell. I'm the Cabinet and Committee Services Officer for the Vale of Glamorgan Council, and I'm supporting the meeting today, which is being recorded and live streamed on the Council's YouTube website. Before we move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is to appoint the chair for the meeting, I do have a few housekeeping matters that I just need to make you aware of. Can I firstly make sure that everyone is aware that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be made available on the Council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting today. All of the information was published on the Vale of Glamorgan website as per the statutory guidelines, but there were 2 pieces of supplemental information which were both published online as well, so they're available for the public to see. Can I ask during the meeting that all participants mute their microphones when they're not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback whilst other participants are speaking? If a participant does wish to speak, if you're in the chamber, and we have members of the public here in the chamber with us today, please can you raise your hand and get the attention of Democratic Services officers, and we can advise the chair accordingly. If you're attending remotely, please use the raise hand function so that the chair can see that you would wish to speak. If anyone does experience any issues with picture quality, in the first instance, I'd recommend that you possibly turn off your webcam in order to save your broadband. And if there are any issues, please contact Democratic Services and we'll be happy to help. If for any reason a participant is unable to continue with the hearing but is required to provide information to the committee so that a determination can be made, we'll adjourn for a short time to make sure that that connection can be re-established, and then obviously we'll restart as soon as is possible after that. As a chair does need to be appointed for this meeting, can I ask the members present for a nomination and or second for the committee to undertake that role today? Fellow members, could I have a nomination for the role of chair?
I would nominate Councillor Drake, please.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Do I have a seconder for that nomination?
Yes, sorry.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded. So thank you, Councillor Drake, as the nominated chair for this meeting. I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, everyone. I presume you can still hear me? That's fine?
We can, Councillor Drake. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now proceed with the agenda, which, as outlined, is for new premises licence application at Home House Penarth. I believe the officer has outlined all procedures. I don't know if there's anything else he wants to add.
Sorry, Chair, just before we go on to item 3, can I just double check amongst the members of the committee that there is no declaration of interests for today?
I was going to raise that in the next item.
Apologies. I hadn't received any prior to the meeting, so I wasn't expecting any at the meeting, but it's always best to ask. Thank you, Chair.
No, I was going to introduce myself as Councillor Pamela Drake and ask other members to introduce themselves as well and ask whether they had any declarations of interest.
Thank you. I jumped the gun. I apologise.
I presume everybody knows who the next 2 committee members are. Right, that's fine. Oh.
Yeah, my name's Michael Morgan. I'm an independent councillor for the Peterston Super Ely ward in the Vale. I have no interest to declare, and I am completely objective in my consideration of this matter today.
And I am Gillian Bruce Ward, and I have no declarations of interest.
Thank you both. Now, we are here today to look at this application for a new premises licence for Home House Penarth, and I welcome all those present today. And I would ask who was taking part in this meeting. I presume we got all the names up here. perhaps our officer can run through them as and when the most appropriate time. And I presume everybody, all those ones present, have made their written applications to the authority. Okay, right. Now I will, in a minute, I will hand over to our licensing officer to take us through this application and confirm any details. I don't know who's taking this today. Oh,
it's me today, Chair.
right. Right. Could you go through
Thanks.
everything first?
Yes, I'll briefly go through it. So thank you, Chair. So this is an application, as we said, for the grant of a new premises licence. The applicant is Siluries Penarth Limited. Appendix A contains a copy of the application and a plan of the premises. And paragraph 1.2 contains a brief description of the premises and its intended use. I note that the applicant and his representatives are here today. So, and they're going to provide further detail on the application. So I just briefly highlight some of the key points in the report. In paragraph 1.3 and 1.4, the original hours applied for licensable activities are documented, as well as some amendments made during the consultation period. I can confirm that these have been tweaked again, and the details are outlined in the supplemental information that has been referred to and is contained in the pack at Appendix E. So this includes a proposal for sale of alcohol to start at 12 noon, not 8 a.m, Sunday to Thursday, and 10 a.m. to 1 a.m. Friday to Saturday. There are some other proposed changes which I will allow the applicant to go through for members' information and consideration. In relation to the use of the outside rear garden, I draw members' attention to paragraph 1.7, in which the applicant proposes that the usage times will be after 22 hours or not later than after 22 hours Monday to Thursday, 2,300 hours Friday and Saturday, and 2,000 hours on a Sunday. The additional conditions proposed in the original application are in section M of Appendix A. And just to note, as is mentioned in the report, live and recorded music is deregulated between 0800 and 2,300 hours, which is why committee is requested to consider music only after 2,300 hours. So the premises has been trading under the authorisation of TENS, but when this report was written, they had reached the limit on the number of days that can be authorised through the TENS process. Moving swiftly on to points 2.1 to 2.9 of the report, a representation was received from one of the responsible authorities, and that was South Wales Police. However, following consultation between the applicant and the police, a set of licensing conditions were agreed, and the proposals and a copy of the agreement is at Appendix B. It is proposed that if subcommittee are minded to grant the application, these conditions would be imposed on the licence. 25 representations were received from other persons, which consist of local residents and or their representatives. Some of those residents are present today and obviously wish to speak on the application to committee, so I do not intend to go through them, but all of those representations are at Appendix C for members to refer to. As per 2.6 of the report, I would draw attention to members that several representations that have been made reference a previous premises licence. Now, this licence was surrendered in July 2024 due to the closure of the last premises. A copy of that licence is detailed in Appendix D for completeness. Finally, I refer members to the recommendations at point 1 in determining this application. And before you move on to the applicant, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have on the report.
Right, I'll call on our 2 committee members first. Well, Councillor Bruce, you've got your hand up. You'd like to ask a question of Mr. Lane.
Yes, I'm looking at the Appendix B, and the sale of alcohol says 8 o'clock. Is that 8 p.m? It's unusual to see it in, but not 8 p.m. in the morning.
So I'm sure the applicant will be able to come in and clarify that when he speaks. But the sale of alcohol, if you refer to 1.4 of the report, it lists the sale of alcohol from Sunday to Thursday, 0800 to basically 12 a.m. So that has been amended though by the later appendix that is in its appendix.
In there. Should have taken the old ones out to know which is which now.
Yeah, so it's that was in the original application, and then it was amended, and subsequent to that, there's been another amendment. But when you're talking about 8, it's 0800, so it's 8 a.m.
So 8 o'clock in the morning, recorded music.
Yeah, and any reference to 8 is 0800, Councillor.
Oh, blimey. Okay.
Councillor Morgan, do you wish to raise anything?
No, not at this stage. I'm keen to hear what the applicant has to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I do see a hand raised for Spencer Gray. I don't know whether he wishes to raise anything.
Yes, I do wish to speak, Chair. I would just like to ask a question to Shared Regulatory Services. Has there been any expression of acceptance of the licence? As I note that the applicant has put an advertisement out in the public eye saying there's 25% off a meal to celebrate the granting of our licence. Well, that's before we've even had the hearing today. So does he think that the licence is in the bag, so to speak?
Well, I can guarantee you that I can't speak for what promotional material has been put out there, but obviously this is the reason why we're having the hearing, and it'll be for the members to decide on the evidence that is put before them today.
Thank you.
Chair, just to advise, we've got a member of the public in the chamber who has a hand raised to speak. So if you're happy, we could bring them in.
Have we covered everything now?
Sorry, Chair, just checking you can hear me. There's a member of the public who has a hand raised in the chamber, so just letting you know.
Oh, right, sorry. I can't see that, obviously.
No, so just bringing it to your attention, so I'll let you know. But if you'd like to.
I just wanted to confirm the hours of trading. I think there was an amendment again for not reducing the hours at the end of the evening, but to reduce the hours from 8 until 10 in the morning, because I think there was a little bit of confusion between the members of the committee, just to clarify that point as I see it.
Yeah, so as I understand it, and obviously the applicant is going to present next at his representation, they had amended them originally during the consultation period, but subsequent to that, and this is where you have the information included in Appendix E, they've proposed that for sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, that will now be 12 noon till 12 a.m. Sunday to Thursday, 10 a.m. till 1 a.m. On Friday and Saturday, and some exceptions then for New Year's Eve. So, as I said, the applicant is going to present next, and I'm sure they can clear up any confusion on that regard.
Thank you very much. I'd also like to back up Spencer's point that I don't understand. I don't think anybody understands why you would promote something that you haven't got yet. I'm still very confused by that. And is that ingratiating towards the residents, as they suggest that they are going to be? I personally don't think so, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
I can see another hand raised by Mr. Gray again.
Yeah, I do apologise, Chair, for interrupting all the time. I have one more query before we move on and I lose my opportunity to speak. It's with reference to representations, whether it be through objections or in support of the licence. I believe the closing date was the 19th of July, is that correct?
I'd have to confirm that, but if that's, it would have been on the public notice that would have been submitted as part of the consultation.
Okay, well, it was on a notice, 19th of July. I note from one of the officials, Matthew, that a representation in favour of the licence and in favour of the applicant was made on the 6th of August. That was some considerable time after our representations objecting had to be in. So will you omit that from the presentation?
I'm not entirely sure which representation you're referring to. There was some supplemental information which was put forward by those who had made representations, and that was the applicant and people who had made representations against. I've seen 25 representations in Appendix C. I don't know which one you're referring to, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll try and find it whilst everyone's talking. I'll allow you to carry on. Thank you.
Just to confirm, Chair, if you don't mind, I think that what's being referred to is the Matthew in question is myself. My email and name is at the top of the header for Appendix E, but obviously I was just the officer who was forwarding on that information as supplementary information. So just to clarify that, Chair.
Thank you for that, Matthew. Right, are we all complete on this item? I can't see any hands raised. So I'll move on to the next item, which is asking the applicant or their representative to present their case. So I don't know who's going to be doing that today.
That will be me, Chair. My name is Matthew Phipps. I'm from TLT Solicitors, and I will be presenting the application on behalf of the applicant today. There's been some reference, I believe, to Appendix E. If I could just invite the committee to have Appendix E with them. What that contains are our written submissions developing all of the various points that we would like to bring to your attention today. And that actually does include some clarity on the hours. And what I thought would be I hope, helpful way to approach this morning is just to take you through that document and those submissions, to canter you through. I appreciate you will all have read them in advance, but if I just canter you through that document, if I might, but I hope it'll be helpful for the committee to have that in front of them from the outset. So first of all, the application is made by Cilliers Penarth. The reference to Cilliers is Gaff Andrews, who is on this call, his business, and he currently has a restaurant and bar in Wellfield Road in Cardiff. And we've attached a link to Cilliers within these submissions, which shows some photographs and shows the menu, which will be very, very similar here. Sorry?
You seem to be freezing. Matthew, can you help us?
Thank you, Chair.
I can hear you. Turn my camera off on Matthew's advice. Is that better?
Yes, that's much bit clearer. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, Mr. Phipps. We'll try with just your audio only, with the agreement of the committee, and obviously if there's any issues, we'll troubleshoot that as we go. Thank you.
Yes. Well, look, thank you very much. Sorry about that. Although I'm apologising. I suspect some may prefer my camera to be off than to be on. But anyway, that's for another day. The submissions set out the who the applicant is and what they propose to do, and gives a little bit about their background in a variety of hospitality business. The next thing to turn to is Home House itself. And as Mr. Lane has identified, Home House has had the benefit of a licence before now. And I think it's right to say has had the benefit of a number of licences, as the business has been licensed for certainly a decade or more, I suspect longer. Although from time to time, the businesses that have been operating from that location have folded, closed, and licenses have either been surrendered or have been lost, through financial difficulties. And I think I've mentioned in the submissions that the view, although I grant you it's an observation from the press, is that the hotel, as previously operated, struggled to recover from COVID and the cost of living crisis. The license application is not an absolute mirror of the previous license, but it's broadly on the same terms, and you will be able to see it later hours on Friday and Saturday to finish hours, and I'll come to the start times in a moment, but later hours through the week. We've attached some photographs of the premises to our submissions. Hope the committee's had the opportunity to see those photographs. Probably not much for me to say, particularly about the premises. You can see it's laid out to a smart restaurant bar with an outdoor terrace and garden. Dealing with regulated entertainment, Mr. Lane, I think, has fairly set it out, but just to be very clear, although the application originally requested regulated entertainment, that has been withdrawn, save for New Year's Eve. So there is no regulated entertainment element to this application today. And that, of course, is because the national government has deregulated entertainment between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m., provided it's to a limited capacity audience. And so there will be no live and recorded music as a regulated activity other than on New Year's Eve when it is requested. In terms of the hours are set out, in the written submission. But to be clear, they are Sunday to Thursday, 12 noon until 12 midnight for sale of alcohol, and for late night refreshment, sale of hot food and hot drink. And then 10 a.m. until 1 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, with New Year's Eve until 1:30 a.m. And that would include on New Year's Eve only regulated entertainment, with a 30-minute wind down period or drinking up time, as you will likely know it. Also included within the submissions is the letter that we sent to all the representors seeking to address their various points and concerns. We've not actually had anyone come back to us on that, but I would ask the committee to have a look through that letter when you later come to retire. The representations I'll come to in a moment, but you will see that there are no representations from the responsible authorities at all. The police served a representation, and effectively their representation is within your papers. What that representation says is, if we can agree the following conditions, then we offer no objection. And the police set out conditions, again contained within the agenda papers. First of all, that they interpreted the conditions that were contained within the application, and then they requested a number of additional conditions themselves, which effectively are training, challenge 25, notices, layout of the premises to tables and chairs, closure of the garden at 8 p.m. on Sundays, 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. They also did propose some hours for operation, which are actually more than those that we are now going ahead with. And they interpreted our application as providing an incident book and providing CCTV throughout the premises. I should add that one of the conditions, and it's set out in my submissions, I have amended from the original police proposal. We propose that the conditions state live music not to cause disturbance to neighbours. It seemed to me, respectfully to the police, that a short, sharp, readily understandable condition was preferable, because you will see that that is a concern for a number of residents. And I have engaged with Scott McCarthy, the police licensing officer, and advised him of the amendment, and he is happy with that. We understand the environmental health also engaged. No objection from them, but that followed dialogue about the rear garden area. And as I say, that is to close 8 p.m. Sundays, 10 p.m. in the week, 11 p.m. on weekends. The objections set out a number of concerns and anxieties, and we have also proposed within our submission 3 additional conditions to attend to the primary points that relate to the licensing objectives. First, about the timing for the removal of waste or bottling out or deliveries between 7 a.m. and 11 p.m, and also a condition about staff leaving at the end of the night quickly and quietly. There's some suggestion in the representations that there are points of complaint to be raised. My clients have engaged both with the police and with the licensing service, and both have advised that they have not had cause historically to be in receipt of complaints. The police, I've quoted it in my submissions, say, I've been in my licensing role with responsibility for the Vale of Glamorgan since February 2020 and have never had cause to attend or contact the previous operators of Home House regarding any licensing matters. All I can say is that the low-level reports we have on the system do not give any cause for concern around the licensing objectives. A number then of the representations raise the issue of planning permission. My clients have engaged with the planning officers at the Vale of Glamorgan, and they've confirmed that the planning permission is perfectly proper for this proposal and this operation. And to quote the officer, Cilliers is considered to be currently operating in line with the planning permissions for the site. A number then of other representations raise parking as a point of concern. We will leave your legal advisor, Chair, to advise you on whether parking can fairly be said to be a matter that attends to the licensing objectives. It doesn't seem a licensing objective concern to the applicants or to ourselves. But there is a photograph also contained within the papers disclosing the Marine Parade parking availability at about 7 p.m. on Friday the 26th of July, when we were trading under the temporary event notices that Mr. Lane mentioned earlier. There are a couple of photographs in the representation showing a delivery lorry causing a bit of an obstruction and creating a little bit of a traffic jam. I'm bound to accept that. Perfectly fair photograph, but I'm afraid I don't see that's really a licensing objective. That's just a matter of making sure that our deliveries are undertaken courteously by the delivery drivers. I've also touched on your licensing policy within the submissions, and I won't propose to quote you your own licensing policy again this morning, but a wide variety of high quality and well-managed entertainment, cultural venues operating correctly is obviously something that the authority support, provided that there is proper management of the site, training and so forth. And all of the conditions I've mentioned as regards to the police tend to that. It's also right, for perhaps the benefit of your legal officer, to bring to your attention paragraph 912 of the National Licensing Guidance, which makes very clear that the experts are considered to be your officers, the police in regard to issues of antisocial behaviour, environmental health in respect of issues relating to noise, and so forth. And so the lack of representations from them, we say, is a matter of significance when you later come to retire. There is some mention in the supplementary papers of waste and a smell coming from the waste materials at the premises. And although the representative is good enough to say not sure whether that is a licensing matter, my understanding is that the authority who are responsible for waste collection have been of significant assistance in the last couple of weeks, and that issue, we believe, has been addressed. It's being collected properly and in line with our expectations. There's also a video contained within the supplementary papers, filmed, I think, through the gate at the premises, showing that music was audible in the garden a few weeks ago. I'm bound to accept that that's true, but I don't see that discloses anything approximating a public nuisance. You will see on the video that the volume button is turned up to maximum at the bottom of the video. You are able to hear people speaking at a perfectly legitimate conversational volume in the video. And when the person filming the video turns and moves toward a wall, the sound drops off to nothing. So I'm afraid I don't see that there's any evidence of public nuisance or any issues or problems. And as we know, there have been temporary event notices for the maximum permitted amount, albeit a few weeks ago, with a couple of additional days, and none of the officers have seen fit to bring anything to our attention to suggest we did anything other than a good job. So all in all, candidly, we say that this is a premises that has traded broadly similar hours for many years without cause for complaint or concern, albeit it's fair to flag that on each occasion that I can certainly recall, I think two to my experience, there was a significant volume of residential objection to each application that is made at Home House. Each time it's been granted by committee, and each time there's never been a review or any enforcement, or as far as we can see, any actual legitimised complaints either made to or considered by the authorities. So in all the circumstances, we will be inviting you to grant the licence. I should finish on this point. We are entirely respectful of the fact that residents are concerned to ensure that we do this properly. That is why we wrote to everyone and provided our contact details, and I think they were also provided by your licensing manager at the time the application was submitted. One person did engage with us, and we were grateful for that engagement. We are very happy to engage with anybody. We do not want to be a nuisance. Candidly, we would like the residents of Marine Parade to be customers. And so just for the avoidance of doubt, notwithstanding that we say this is a reasonable and proportionate application with legitimate conditions that is essentially supported by officers, if anybody wants to engage with us, we will happily engage with them. And that's probably all from me, Councillor. Thank you.
Right. Mr. Phipps, do you have any witnesses you may wish to speak on this with you today?
No, thank you, Councillor. As I mentioned, Mr. Andrews is here, one of the directors of the business. But what we, rather than pretend that we're in court or conduct ourselves though we're in court, I thought that I would give the presentation, and then if you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them. If I can't, Mr. Andrews will help.
Right, well, I'll open it up now, but I'll call on our committee members first to ask if they want to request any further information from yourself. Councillor Morgan, do you wish to say?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Phipps, for that presentation. One question I would like to ask. I've also mentioned that, as well as being a counsellor, I'm also a solicitor in private practice, so I do know a little about these things. I'm curious about your comment about parking and whether you say whether parking is a legitimate consideration. Looking at the plan of the premises, there's no provision for on-site parking, so everybody that has to park along Marine Parade. So why would that not be a legitimate point of concern? I know you show photographs of limited parking at 7 o'clock in the evening. Although I don't live in the north, I'm a regular visitor there. It can be very difficult to park anywhere along Marine Parade later in the evening. So how does the applicant upquaking and the potential of
Oh,
Did the councillor freeze then, or is that me, Chair?
Councillor Morgan seems to have disappeared a moment.
causing
Yeah.
nuisance to blue?
Oh, you're back.
Sorry, Councillor Morgan, we lost you for a second there, just at the tail end of your point. Could I ask you to make that again?
Oh, Councillor Morgan seems to...
I might suggest, Chair, that Councillor Morgan do the same thing as Mr. Phipps and turn his camera off, and we just rely on the sound.
How's that now?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
Good, right. No, the final question I raised really with the applicant was how they would be addressing the question of parking in the light that there could be a potential nuisance for residents who live nearby.
Mr. Phillips, are you be able to answer that?
Yes, can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Look, in terms of the 2 points, the first point is that what I raise with the committee and perhaps with your legal officer is whether parking can legitimately be considered to fall within the 4 licensing objectives. We are only concerned with the 4 licensing objectives, and I presume that the suggestion is that parking could be considered a matter of public nuisance. And that isn't a point, respectfully, that I can accept. Parking is a problem around the country. And if a difficulty with finding a parking spot outside your residential property or indeed on your residential road were deemed to be a legitimate obstructor to a premises license application, there would be an awful lot of premises that would struggle to obtain a license throughout England and Wales, candidly. That said, to deal with the councillor's second point, does that mean that we are immune from a sensitivity to the issue? No, not at all. We entirely respect the fact that we're not there to aggravate people. We're not there to cause unnecessary issues or problems. As we've identified, I think, from the police and from the licensing authority, the premises has traded for many years. Parking in Marine Parade is broadly the same now as it was then, and there have been no substantiated complaints, nor indeed, as far as I can see, any complaints even made to the authority or the police during the time of its trade. So there may be, from time to time, some inconvenience. You might not be able to park outside your house if someone has parked on a legitimate part of the road. I don't know the area well enough to know whether there is a residential permit provision, but obviously that would protect residents. But doing it sensitively, asking our customers to do it sensitively, is probably as much as I can offer, I'm afraid.
Councillor Morgan, do you wish to come back on any of these items?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
No, I've got nothing further to add. I know parking is an issue, especially in some of these older places where they were built when people didn't have cars, unfortunately. Councillor Bruce, do you wish to raise anything?
No, nothing at this time, thanks.
Right, thank you. Right, I'll open it up now. I've got a hand raised for Spencer Gray.
That's correct, Chair.
Hello,
I've also got one raised hand in the chamber.
Right.
So
I'm just going to ask you that as well.
yeah, Mr. Gray.
Chair, I've got a couple of questions for Mr. Phipps. Is he aware that the police and fire service representation was completed by tabletop desk exercise? They haven't visited the premises, so they wouldn't see or know the locality other than on Google Maps. I have since spoken to a PCSO who stated, "Oh, that's a rather leafy, quiet suburb, I would imagine." So I don't believe that what Mr. Phipps has said about that is correct. Now, as far as
let me answer that question, if I may, Councillor, because it is, of course, a time for questions now. I don't accept that at all. If the suggestion is that the police licensing team at the Vale of Glamorgan have been negligent in the undertaking of their duties, or the environmental health officer, I simply don't accept that. They are an experienced team who cover the whole of the Vale. As you know, there has been a specific representation served. I think it opens with the phrase, "I have caused inquiries to be made." I don't accept that that's a lie at all, if that's the suggestion. And I'm afraid I reject entirely the suggestion that they are not taking their duties seriously.
Can I finish now, please? Thank you, Mr. Phipps. So planning, you referred to planning. There was no issues with planning. I can tell you that in the lane adjacent to my father's, that the property owner of Home House had put steps down from a fire exit into the public highway, a lane, and since then has been asked to remove it. So just a factually incorrect point from yourself.
If I may answer that question.
No. Can I finish, please? Can I finish, please? Can I finish?
Sir,
I allowed you to finish. I allowed you to finish.
Sir,
please.
It is a time, as the legal officer will no doubt advise, or the Democratic Services officer will no doubt advise, this is a time for questions. And I'm trying to answer your question. I'm not trying to be aggravating, but it's a time for questions. You have an opportunity to speak later. So in terms of the answer to the question, the point I made is the premises has a lawful and legitimate planning permission. And A, and B, it is an entirely separate regulatory regime.
Okay, so I'll answer your question about, is it public nuisance parking? Well, we believe it is, especially when they park on yellow lines and they restrict driveways, so it makes it treacherous to come in and out of a driveway of home, a cul-de-sac, and also parking on curbs, whilst you might not think is a nuisance now, over a long period of time, those pavements are not built to withstand the heavy goods vehicles that are mounting the curb. So consequently, at a later date, it will become a public nuisance by means of a trip hazard. So that's my point on that. And last one, waste is not resolved. As far as I'm concerned, there's still a lot to go on that. And whilst I haven't personally, or my father, Mr. Gray, hasn't personally spoken to the management, I am aware of other residents who have, and they don't seem to care. So I invite Mr. Andrews to discuss that later on. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. I can see two hands. There's one in the chamber we'll go to first.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, we've got two in the chamber and then we've got a couple of hands raised online. Yes.
Yeah,
so
but I would ask that everybody acts in an orderly manner, please. Right, I don't know who's going to be in the chamber first.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, thank you, Chair. I think there was a couple of issues I just wanted to pick up with Mr. Phipps, if I may. I think the first one was if he could explain why his client did advertise that there was going to be a licence as from tomorrow, please. What was the reasoning behind that? The parking, obviously, I wasn't aware, but thank you, Councillor, for bringing it up, that we could discuss this at this meeting, but it is only going to get worse, of course, because the Vale of Glamorgan are considering applying charges on the seafront. When the seafront gets busy at this moment in time, we get overloaded in Marine Parade. Presumably, when the charges become about, there'll be even more cars. Yes, I appreciate there is a number of parking spaces on the subject premises, but certainly not enough in relation to what the licence has requested. Mr. Phipps, you mentioned that your colleague in the police force had had an opinion since 2020. Unfortunately, his opinion probably hasn't got that much material weight to it, as during that period there was COVID, the unit was shut, and then the last 15 months it's been shut as well. So we probably wouldn't get any complaints whatsoever, Mr. Phipps, in that period. So you were right in saying that. But I think there's a number of points that I just wanted to pick out, and I think Nikki in the room, my neighbour, because I live in Marine Parade, obviously. Also, the point I wanted to bring out was you commented on the video. I actually took the video. I could hear the thumping of the bass at 8:30 in my lounge. I'm not immediately opposite. I'm about 5 doors down on the other side. I purposely got out from my lounge to take that video. So your comments with regard it couldn't be heard. It was a public nuisance. It's 8:30 on the Sunday. Unfortunately, as you do not live there, you didn't know, but I'm just correcting you that it could be heard down the street. I think there are some other questions, but I will come back to you. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Phipps, do you wish to answer any of those questions?
Yes, thank you. So, dealing with the advertisement, I'm afraid that is the first that I'm aware of it. When it was mentioned earlier today, it probably merits conversation with my client, but at the moment it sounds a bit unfortunate, and I can only apologise for it. I don't know the detail of it. In terms of the parking, the simple point that I'm trying to make in regard to parking is that parking is not in and of itself something that could fairly be considered to fall within the licensing objectives. And insofar as the local authorities' commitment or proposed plans to have charging on the seafront, that's obviously quite outside anything to do with a licensing application. That would equally apply presumably to every single licensed premises in Penarth. And I don't think that there could be any suggestion that there shouldn't be any licensed premises in Penarth. In the context of the police, I just don't accept the point that the police are doing anything other than a proper job here. This committee will be aware of the police engagement on all licensing applications. And it may be said now, well, they haven't had many complaints since 2020 because of COVID, and that may well be right. But the simple fact is what the officer reported to us is that there haven't been any complaints, and there is no reference that I can see to complaints that precede that. And in terms of the video, I don't challenge the fact that you took the video, but it is clear from the video that you can hear people talking at conversational levels. You can also hear the music volume drop off very significantly as the person taking it goes behind the wall. Does that mean that we are complacent about it? No. If we need to apologise, then we happily will. But there is nothing in that video that would invite the conclusion that a public nuisance was occurring at 8 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon to me.
I respond to that, Chair, if that's okay, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Phipps, I wouldn't certainly have got out of my lounge to video on a Sunday evening if I didn't think there was a noise, which there was. I hear what you say about the quality of my camera, and I apologise for that. Also, with regard to parking, can I remind Mr. Phipps that we didn't pick the parking issue up because we were aware of the situation, but one of the members of the committee, the councillor, brought this up in the licensing meeting. Thank you.
Can I bring our legal officer, Richard Price, in? Because he obviously wants to raise something. Richard? Right.
Yes, Chair. I just want to make it clear that parking is not a consideration for this licensing committee today, neither is planning. So it would help everybody and move the matter on if the reference to parking and planning are left out the conversations and that we concentrate on the licensing objectives.
Thank you for that, Richard. I will go back to Matthew now. Is there anybody else in the chamber wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, Mr. Whedon, if I could ask you to turn your microphone off, and if you'd like to come on, Ms. Evans, thanks very much.
Right, hello, thank you. I just wanted to make pick up a few points. The music, I'm not sure if it got circulated. There was a photo and, you know, it was showing people singing with raised arms, you know, a lot of revelry. This was not quiet. This was not a quiet event next door to residential houses. It also showed that the garden fence for the adjoining property is about 3 metres away from where there was a DJ with very large speakers, headphones on, as I say, music pumping out. The bass from that was audible all through my house as well. So the music was loud and there wasn't so, you know, there didn't appear an attempt to keep that quiet. We were lucky that event was on a Sunday and it did close quite early. So it finished around 9:15 on that day. But I don't think in the future that is always going to be the case. This licensing is, they're looking for very late licensing and I imagine some very late events. The other thing to bring about the complaints, with the last owner, there was very few big events. When they were there, we did walk in to the hotel and the management listened and action was taken at that point. None of us take lightly to phoning the police. And actually, phoning the police for noise complaints is not an easy matter. You have to hang on a phone for about an hour to get through. I know some of this was brought up in Hickman's about how many times complaints were rang through to the police, because it's a big palaver, but also, as I say, we don't take lightly to phoning the police. So in the past we haven't, and it, you know, one-off events and rare events people can manage, but not larger events. So yeah, those were my issues. Thank you.
Mr. Phipps, do you want to come back in on any of these? Hello?
Sorry, can you forgive me, Councillor? You probably couldn't hear me then. I don't think I clicked my button, sorry. Just in terms of the rear garden, the licence proposes to restrict the rear garden to 8 p.m. on a Sunday, 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday, and 11 p.m. Friday to Saturday. And that is proposed to be a condition and a restriction on the licence if the licence is granted. And in terms of the engagement, just to reiterate the point, my client is very happy to engage with anybody in an informal, or indeed a formal, but in an informal manner to resolve any issues or concerns. There is no objection to that at all, and that obviously is why we wrote to all the representors trying to address their concerns and to raise issues in the right manner.
Thank you. Now, I'm looking at there's several hands raised, so I'll go in order that I can see on the screen. Nikki James is. Is there difficulty with connection?
Hello there, Nikki. If you're able to press the large request to speak button in the bottom centre of your screen, hopefully that should bring you on.
Can you hear us all right?
Yes, we can hear you. We can't see you. Sorry. We don't have camera for you, but we do have audio.
I just kept the camera off. Brilliant. Okay, it's just a couple of questions. With regards to the licensing, there was initially, I think, the application included for large events for up to 100 people, and I think. Is that does that still stand? And is there any kind of idea as to how regularly that would be? Because obviously, I fully understand, and I'm sorry to refer back to parking. I fully understand that on a general level that doesn't come under licensing, and I appreciate that. But obviously, if the license is for a large party, that's a slightly different implication to your standard sort of day-to-day usage. So it's just to ask that. Secondly, I just wondered, is there any sort of process for independent assessment of sound? Because I can tell you, as someone who's worked in acoustics for many years, a phone microphone will not give you any indication whatsoever of what it's like. And I have to be honest, I find it slightly insulting that Mr. Phipps's opinion was he was disregarding the noise. I guarantee if he was living next door to it, he would not be coming up with the same argument as he did. So, and I just wondered, and in terms of process, a lot of points have been put forward by Councillor Morgan, by Mr. Whedon, and there tends to be the answer. Mr. Phipps sort of argued strongly that he has a right to answer, but his answer is, I disregard that. Does that make this any kind of process at all, really, if he's just going to ignore and disregard things? How does that work as a process? I'm not a legal person, but it seems very, well, if it's just disregarded, what is the point of the question? That's all, thanks.
Mr. Phipps, do you want to come back in?
Thank you, Councillor. In terms of the disregarding point, I'm not wanting to suggest we're disregarding the points that are legitimately raised. And we have to conduct ourselves in a manner that is conducive to the locality in which we find ourselves. And I completely accept entirely that point. The point I was trying to make is that, and I think even if you don't accept it from me, perhaps from the local authority solicitor, it's perhaps a point better made. The parking is not a licensing consideration in and of itself. That was the point that I was making. I was not saying, and therefore anybody can park anywhere they like without regard to residents whatsoever. I'm not suggesting that at all. I was just saying that we are concerned today with the 4 licensing objectives, and the parking is not an issue, nor in passing is planning that falls within the objectives. In terms of the independent assessment point, I'll have to accept if you say that the phone video or noise levels disclosed are not reliable, then I'll accept that. But it is clear that the volume is turned up on the video that's been circulated, and you can clearly hear people speaking. And so it seemed, and I was not there. I entirely accept I was not there. But it seemed to me if you could hear people speaking while the video is being shown, that says something about the volume that is being observed or videoed, and also with the turning around next to the wall and the drop off of the noise also says something. But I wasn't there, and I'm bound to accept I wasn't there. The other point about independent assessment is, of course, that is more or less what the Environmental Health Office and Service do for and on behalf of the authority, and bluntly for and on behalf of residents, is they monitor and observe licensed premises at all times that issues are brought to their attention and or in any event. So there is an independent assessment facility, and that's environmental health. And then the first point was, will there be events and parties? Yes, I think it's right to say that there will from time to time. That has not been removed from the application, but those events will have to be conducted within the licensing hours that are proposed, including the restrictions on the operation of the garden, with the conditions that the police have formulated. And so it is not going to be, for the avoidance of doubt, a party venue. It is a restaurant and bar. But will there be functions from time to time? Yes, there will be, as the previous license equally permitted.
Thank you for that. The next hand I can see is James Murray.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Jim Murray. I'm a resident of Park Road, adjacent to Marine Parade. I had a very specific question at this point about the application in Appendix E, where it states the provision of late night refreshment is for the times indicated, in other words, till midnight, Sunday to Thursday, and till 1 o'clock, Friday and Saturday. But it says provision of late night refreshment indoors and outdoors, whereas there's also an assurance that the outside garden will not be used after earlier times. So why is the license being requested for indoors and outdoors up until the later times specified in Appendix E? Thank you.
It's a very fair point, and effectively I can only apologise for it. The original application was for indoors and outdoors. When the hours were amended to restrict the outside area, that was not picked up. That's my error, and you are right to raise it, perfectly proper, and it's to be treated as indoors only, and I apologise.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. The next hand I got is Spencer Gray.
Thank you, Chair. If I could just ask the legal representative on behalf of the council, under public nuisance, which is one of the licensing objectives, what are the criteria that you consider to be a public nuisance? Because nuisance traffic is one of those headings that I would describe, and nuisance traffic could be, and even if you don't class it under the public nuisance, you would certainly class it under a criminal offence. To park on double yellow lines is an offence. So therefore, it does come within the licensing objectives, parking. If you can just clarify that for me, please, the legal representative. Thank you.
I cannot see you coming online.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, Mr. Price is still connected. Richard, can I ask if you're there? Could you come on to answer the point? Thank you.
Oh, there he is. Thank you, Richard.
Chair, I don't know how to make it any more clear. We're not here to consider parking today. And as Mr. Gray's indicated, if somebody's parking on a double yellow line, you know, that is for enforcement under a different regime. And it's really not helpful to keep labouring this point of parking, because I know there are a lot of people who want to raise relevant points today. But
it is relevant, Mr. Price, because it falls under public nuisance, and nuisance traffic is a heading under public nuisance.
Mr. Gray, I disagree with you. My advice to the committee will be to disregard all elements that you've raised and others have raised in relation to parking. It does not amount to public nuisance. It is a different regime, which is governed, as you've quite rightly said, by traffic regulation orders, parking restrictions, and that's what governs parking. You know, you could have a large party where everybody arrives in one single vehicle. You could have a smaller party where 30 people arrive in separate vehicles. These aren't matters which are within the control of the licensing authority.
Thank you. Right, I'll call on the next person, which is Beth Randall. Can you hear us?
Hello, Beth. We can see that you've pressed your request to speak button. You're on screen, but we've got a black tile and no sound for you at the moment. Ah, hello. We can see you. We can't hear you. Sorry, Chair. We could see Miss Randall for a second there. She popped up on the screen, but I couldn't hear her.
She's having difficulties, is she?
Hello, Miss Randall. We've got the same issue, I'm afraid. We can see that you've connected, but we can't see you or hear you. I don't know whether it's worthwhile, if the Chair's in agreement, if you were to leave the meeting, close the browser that you had open, and then re-click the invitation that you had by email, but check your settings before you join the meeting to make sure that you can see yourself on screen and that you can see that the microphone is actually connected, because at the moment we can't see or hear you. It does have to be Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome or Firefox. It can't be a Safari browser. So just to mention that, if with your acceptance, Chair, if we can allow Beth to disconnect from the meeting.
I have no issues with that.
Hopefully she can rejoin in a moment and pop her hand back up and we can bring her in at that particular moment. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll just wait. Councillor Bruce, you wish to say something?
Just, sorry. I haven't got an Appendix E. Is there an Appendix E, or is it D? Did I mishear?
I don't know who's going to answer that.
Hello, Councillor Bruce. Yeah, Appendix E was supplementary information that was sent around to members and published on the Vale of Glamorgan website the day after the papers were first published, because it was supplementary. There was also a second piece of supplementary information under representation 19, which you should have had. They're all on the website, so you should be able to access those there.
On the website,
Yeah.
no, I just...
They were
We
emailed
haven't
out
got
to
hard
members
copies.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We haven't got
sorry.
hard copies on that. It's just you need to bring it up. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
No problem. Are we having any luck with Beth Rundle?
Hello, Chair. I think Beth is just reconnecting, so hopefully once Beth's up and running and she can press her request to speak button, we'll check to see whether we can see and hear from her. Hello, Beth. We can see that you've reconnected to the meeting now. Could we ask you to press your request to speak button, and hopefully we'll get you up on the screen. It may be that she's testing her connection while we're talking, Chair, so hopefully she'll be with us shortly.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, so hello, Beth. If you can see and hear me, if you can press your large request to speak button at the bottom centre of your screen, hopefully that will bring you up and we can take your point to the committee. No, she doesn't appear to be coming on screen share. So if you'd like to move on, we'll contact Beth separately and see if we can help her.
I was just going to ask whether we should move on now and try and connect her. Yeah. I've got a hand raised by a Chris Brown.
Thank you.
There, right. We can't hear you, unfortunately.
I'm a resident of Marine Parade. I have a couple of points. First off, the outside garden hours on the weekend, Friday and Saturday to 11 p.m. That seems rather late to me. You look at places like the Principality Stadium and Wembley, they have limits of 10:30, which seems far more reasonable. And secondly, in the licensing application, it was mentioned there to be a separate license for New Year's Eve, which goes to 1:30, but they haven't mentioned that in respect of the garden hours. Perhaps they'd like to comment on that, please.
Mr. Phipps, do you wish to come back in on that?
Yes, thank you. Insofar as the Wembley Principality Stadium analogy, and I'm mindful of the point made about disregarding comments that are made. I'm not wanting to be awkward, but I don't think that's a fair analogy. Like there are equally hundreds, if not thousands, of public houses, bars, restaurants that we could point to where the beer garden, outside space, terrace, and so forth would perfectly legitimately be licensed till 11 o'clock or indeed later. Insofar as the New Year's Eve is concerned, no, the hours for the outside effectively override. So the New Year's Eve hours are for the sale of alcohol, but that does not remove the obligation that the premises outside is closed at 11 on Fridays and Saturdays, 10 on Monday to Thursdays, and 8 on a Sunday. So if New Year's Eve fell on a Sunday, whilst the premises could trade till 1:30 internally, the garden would be closed at 8.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Have we had any luck with Beth?
My colleague is actually on the phone to Beth at the moment to see if we can. Oh, hello.
Right.
Hiya, Beth. We can see you, but we can't hear you.
No. Got my daughter here now. Oh.
There you go. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
There you
go.
are.
Thanks.
There you go.
Okay,
Wonderful.
thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Beth, for persevering. We can now see you and hear you. That's brilliant.
Thank my daughter. Yeah, I missed some of that, and I'm sure I'm saying the same things. But I find it really patronising, this thing about how loud the music was in the garden, because it was unbearable. we're a few doors down, and that Sunday from about lunchtime starts off gently, then it gets louder and louder, thumpy, and then that awful kind of music that people listen to when they're drunk. You know, it's just that you only listen to it if you've been drinking for hours, and everyone's singing along. Look, I understand if you move to an area and you're near a pub or a railway station or busy shops, you can't then complain that, oh, people come out and they're noisy or the trains are noisy. You know what you're doing. We've lived here for 35 years. It was an old people's home then. Then it was home house, and that was fine. But they started doing lots of weddings at weekends, and that would get louder and louder, noisier and noisier. And what happens is the music is amplified. So we get more of the music probably than they do. It's amplified all down the gardens. And so you can't really sit in your own garden. To say that they'll have, from time to time, have these things going is, I just don't believe it. And I think once they get going, they're so loud. In fact, that one at the end of July, I know exactly, it was so loud, we had to come inside. I phoned 3 or 4 times. I don't want to phone the police, but I wished I had now. I wished every time that had annoyed me with home house, I'd phoned the police. But you hang on for so long. So basically, I phoned home house, didn't answer. Phoned about 3 or 4 times, no one answers the phone, and then I get a recorded message where there's nobody here to take your call. I actually went round, there's no reception area. Then you end up having to sort of, if you want to make yourself heard, I'd have to gate crash the wedding. And I was very tempted, I have to say. Luckily, it finished about 8:30 at night, which isn't in the afternoon, as Mr. Phipps said. It's actually the evening. And these will just, if they're going to go until midnight, it is unbearable. You know, I'm not a party pooper. I enjoy a party like everybody else. But this is a residential road, and I don't know if the owners would like to live next door to their own business. You know, there's no excuse to it. Why not go out in the Vale somewhere where you've got fields around you and no one to complain? I mean, I'm sure there'd still be someone to complain, but it's very unpleasant. And to say, oh, we'll only do them in the summer, well, that's actually the time you want to be in the garden sometimes. So I don't know what has to be amplified music. And if you say you can have music indoors, they're going to open the windows and doors anyway because people spill out into the garden. It's got a nice garden, it's got a nice terrace. I have no objection to a restaurant. It's the big events that I think are, and they're just antisocial. And it doesn't matter how, you know, they just want nice people there, nice people aged 40 to 50. That's probably half the residents wouldn't fit in with that. But they want them. Everybody's very, very nice. I'm sure the people in the Bullingdon Club are very nice and well brought up. But when people have a lot to drink, and they've been drinking through the afternoon, that sort of music will go on. Everybody's happy, and they're making a noise. And when they leave the place, they're all shouting and, oh, see you tomorrow, calling taxis, slamming doors. Just not very pleasant. And I think the hours and the outdoor music is what really bothers me. You can see I'm really angry about it. But I think if we don't deal with it now, you know, they're welcome to come and sit in my garden when there's an event on, and see if they would like it next to them. And that's really all I have to say.
Mr. Phipps, do you wish to come back in on this?
Chair, yes. I mean, it's a little difficult to give us sort of an answer, but I can only really go back to what I'm not here to be patronising. I apologise if that's how it came across. But we're not allowed to cause a public nuisance. Doesn't matter what the licence says or does. Under no circumstances can we cause a public nuisance. If the suggestion by residents is that on this occasion it was too loud and it went on until 8:30 and that was too late, then we will happily work with you to make sure that we have music when we have an event set at a level that is acceptable. There's no resistance to that. We are not wanting to just plough on and cause difficulty with our neighbours. But points I made about the video that I saw are based on the video that I saw. I didn't see, and don't believe has been circulated, the other video with people singing or people dancing or similar. The one I saw was effectively through the gate of a home house where you could clearly hear people speaking. But I just reiterate the point, nobody from the applicant's perspective has any interest in creating difficulties for neighbours and residents. And if we need to, as an example, undertake observations outside, to walk the perimeter in order to check that the levels are acceptable, and so forth. There's no resistance to that at all.
Yeah, you keep saying that, but at what level will you actually think, yes, that's too much? It goes on, and you can't speak to anyone to complain at the time. You want it dealt with at the time. Nobody answers the phone. So, phoning the police isn't going to do anything. They're not going to come round and tell them to be quiet. Try ringing environmental health on a Saturday evening at 10 o'clock, 10:30. We go to bed, our windows in the bedroom face that way. And I think probably it comes up this way more sometimes. But it's horrible. You just can't get to sleep. It's that awful. It's not just a disco sound. It's the compare. It's the huge speakers. I sometimes think it's probably louder what we hear than they hear inside there. Otherwise, why are they amplifying it? If we can hear it like that, there it must be deafening in the premises. So something's wrong with the way the music is amplified. You don't need to amplify it, and that's my main objection actually. Even more than the parking, it's the noise and the thought of that going on potentially every evening. People still go to work. People have to get up in the morning. If you're going till 10 or 11 at night, the sound of chatting is one thing, and people get noisier and noisier, and the sound carries. Add the music to it, and it's really unpleasant. So, yeah, to be honest, whatever you say, I'm just not.
Oh, sorry about that. I was Matthew Swindle had his hand raised.
I just wanted to obviously make a point of clarification for those who are watching today and through yourself as chair and to the committee members. There's been several references to the video that was submitted that was circulated to members for their information, but obviously a video isn't something that we can publish as part of the papers, so it's not actually been seen. I can play the video if you want to play the video. That's no issue whatsoever. There was also reference to an image that was sent through yesterday, which I can also put up on screen if the committee are happy for me to do so. But I didn't know whether or not that was something that you wanted to play through the committee so that everyone knew what everyone was talking about, Chair, because some of this information is being referred to but hasn't necessarily been able to be put in the public domain.
I don't know what everybody thinks about this. I'll ask our other members. Our other committee members, do anybody wish to raise anything?
I don't mind.
The only thing I was thinking of, Chair, is obviously people are making reference to information that we can't publish on as part of the papers, but people have seen and is being referred to. So just for sort of completeness, if you wanted me to do that, I could put that up on the screen.
If you think that's necessary, we'll go ahead with it. Oh, Richard, do you want to come in?
Chair, I was going to simply ask, is there anybody who would like that played? And if that's so, I have no objection to that being played, subject to anything that Mr. Phipps wishes to say.
We've had a request in the chamber, so as long as the committee are happy, I'm happy to do that, and unless anyone has an objection.
I've got no objections to that. We're ticking all the boxes as we need to go on. Spencer Gray's got his hand up.
Thank you, Chair. The only objection I'll have is there was a cut-off date for representations, the 19th of July, I believe. I presume those representations would be for and against. Anything after the 19th of July, as far as I'm concerned, shouldn't be used. You had your chance to object or support. So why are we taking anything after the 19th of July when residents and general public had to respond by that time? Thank you.
Could our officer, Will Lane, answer that, please?
I was just
Thank you, Chair. I think...
Go on. Go. Sorry, Will. Go on.
So no, just to clarify, the video was submitted by a local resident who happened to be objecting to the application, and the video was submitted as additional supplementary evidence. So the person who submitted that had already made a representation. This was additional evidence that was submitted in the same way that the applicant had.
Yeah. So
okay.
that wasn't their first time, was it?
No, it did. They had already submitted a representation.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right. Matthew, Are you going to be doing something now? Best of luck, if it works.
I will. Thank you, Chair. So yeah, just to clarify the point that Will made as well, these were supplemental information, so there wasn't anything new. It was in support of information that had already been received. But I'd obviously, just because we can't publish the video online, it just means that everyone's had sight of that as a particular submission. But if you're happy, bear with me for a second, and we'll arrange that for you now. Hang on a mo. Right, well, Chair, this is the video that was submitted, so bear with me for 1 second. Thank you, Chair. So that was the video that was submitted through. There was also an image, which has obviously been redacted so that you can't see faces, but that was the image that was submitted as well.
Yeah.
So
can I ask, I might have missed this, Matthew, but what date was this taken?
It was the 27th of July, the image was taken.
Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay,
Thank you, Committee.
Mr. Gray, you've got your hand raised again.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out that of the residential properties, so Mr. Phipps will say that there was low levels of noise and you could hear people speaking. The properties are 3 meters away, 3-4 meters away. Music, sound, people talking, it travels. Sound does travel. So my point is that it may not have sounded very loud on a phone there and then when it's been played to us, but mark my words, Mr. Gray, Mr. Adrian Gray, did find it absolutely unbearable, and it impacted on his weekend. Anyway, enough from me. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I don't know whether there's anybody wants to raise any further questions or anything. Anybody in the chamber?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We've got Mr. Whedon would like to come back in, so please.
Right, okay.
Hi, thank you very much, Chair. I think we just need to get to the nitty-gritty of this, and I appreciate that in their report, in their application, they state they're a restaurant and a bar primarily, and not a discotheque or a live music venue. Can I ask Mr. Phipps and Mr. Andrews then, what is the reasoning? Bearing in mind there's no hotel on site, it's an Airbnb, as we all know about, and we know it's an Airbnb serviced by an Airbnb company, so you don't have to serve residents. What is the reason, if you're only a restaurant and bar, to apply for Sunday to Thursday, 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock? Friday and Saturday, 11 o'clock, sorry, till 12 o'clock, sorry. Friday and Saturday, 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. New Year's Eve, we'll ignore at this moment in time. I've looked at, and I'm sure Mr. Phipps has, I've looked at other licensed establishments and restaurants in Penarth, and with the applications licensing hours, it would be far beyond any other licensed establishment in the whole of Penarth itself. I don't understand why you would need an extension after 11 o'clock on any of the days in a residential area, which is also a conservation area. If you look at the Glendale, the Custom House, Bar 44, Hickman's, they are shorter trading times by far. And also these premises, you know, Bar 44 is in with commercial shops and other premises. This historically was a house. I appreciated this trade in the past, albeit not successfully. If we go back to the 2004 planning, which obviously the duty solicitor says I can't do because it's not an issue regarding licensing laws, but then it was passed that only residents in the hotel could use the bar and restaurant, nobody outside the venue. It's been pushed and pushed and pushed. And now we're being asked, you know, I think I can speak on behalf of some of the residents to say a restaurant with a bar is borderline acceptable, late light licences and venues with loud music in this area is certainly not acceptable and never will be acceptable. And then we will have to come back through the chair, because some of us don't understand the implication of the TENS. The TENS also, Mr. Phipps, you categorically stated that the TENS would operate within the hours of the proposal. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But I think my main concern at the moment, Councillor Drake, is the fact that we're asking this venue to operate longer than anywhere else, or they were asking for it to be longer than anywhere else in Penarth of any similar establishment. Thank you.
Does anybody want to come back in on that?
Councillor, if I may, and I'm sure it's a point that will be taken up by your legal officer, but each application in a licensing context is considered on its individual merits. I can't comment on what the hours are for other licensed premises in Penarth, or indeed the whole of Penarth, as seems to be suggested. That would be a matter for your licensing team. But all I can say is we've submitted an application, and the hours are the hours that we perceive are appropriate, and that seems to be endorsed and supported by both the police, environmental health officer, and all the responsible authorities.
Could I ask then, Mr. Phipps? Sorry, Chair. Can I ask then, Mr.
You wanted to come back in, yeah.
Sorry, Chair. Can I just ask then, what is the reasoning, as Mr. Andrews is with you, bearing in mind he's also advertised that the licence will be available from tomorrow. Can we ask Mr. Andrews what is the reasoning for this extension after, again, I'm not sure a reasonable times at 11 o'clock through the week, as it's not a bar, it is a restaurant and a small bar. What is the reasoning for the extension after normal hours? Because I certainly don't get it.
Sorry, Mr. Andrews, you come on screen, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. We had the same issue in the chamber. We could see
There's
Mr.
a bit of an
Andrews, but
issue,
we couldn't hear him. So hopefully he's reconnecting. We could see him but couldn't hear him. So, Mr. Andrews. No, we can see you, Mr. Andrews, but we can't hear you. You might have the same problem that was experienced earlier. I might recommend the same things. If you can disconnect, close your browser, reconnect using the email that you've received, Mr. Andrews, and then hopefully you can check the settings to be able to see yourself and hear yourself before you rejoin the meeting using Microsoft Edge, Google Chrome, or Firefox as a browser and not Safari. So bear with us, Chair. We'll see whether he comes back on.
Do you mind, Matthew, if I just say to Mr. Andrews, it's two buttons you need to press, Gaff. It's the middle button with the head and the audio, but it's also you need to unmute on the right-hand side. I suspect you're just pressing one of the two buttons, not both.
Sorry.
Hello, Mr. Andrews. We can see that you've reconnected. We can't see you, but can we hear you?
Nothing.
I'm afraid not, Chair. We'll do the same thing if you don't mind. We'll see if we can get in touch with Mr. Andrews, and we'll come back to you shortly. Thank you.
Okay. Oh.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Andrews, my colleague is going to give you a quick ring now to see whether or not we can help you with your connection. So obviously we can come back to this point in a moment, Chair. With your forbearance, we'll wait to hear from Councillor Morgan.
Councillor Morgan, do you want to raise anything? I saw you come on screen.
If not, Chair, if Councillor Morgan doesn't have a further point, we do have a hand up online.
Yes. Next one I've got is Spencer Gray wanted to come back in, and then I got James Murray.
Yeah, I was just, while there's a pause in the hearing, I just wanted to ask a couple of questions that maybe Mr. Phipps would be able to answer. And the first one of the questions is, obviously we've established now with Mr. Whedon, and I agree with what you just said, the property is managed by airservice.com, so he has no control over the guests staying at the hotel. That's the one question. The second part of that question is, if he, as he describes, it's an intimate venue, then identifying up to 200 persons, I'd hardly say that that's an intimate venue. And then based on the fact that he's highlighted 200 people to have a party, what is that based on? Under public safety, would that be based on a fire risk assessment?
So yes, capacities are dealt with by fire risk assessment. That's entirely right. You will know the size and space of the garden. In terms of the Airbnb residential accommodation, it's just the premises license that we're dealing with today. I can't talk to the commercial arrangements with the people who will stay at the Airbnb. This is just about the licensing activities and the licensing objectives. And 10 minutes ago, we were using a comparison of the Principality Stadium and Wembley Stadium when considering this application. I don't think that intimate is aggravating when used in respect of up to 200 or indeed up to 100, which was mentioned earlier.
Okay, I'd just like to ask then, if you have no control over the residents staying in the hotel, there could be children staying in those rooms, because there are rooms that are available for 4 people, so a family of 4. And obviously, protection of the children is a licensing objective. We talk about the capacity numbers of 200. Under the Fire Safety Order 2005, you have to have a risk assessment. And all I'm trying to get at is, what is that risk assessment based on? The capacity numbers, they're based either on number of fire exits or another reason. So I'd like to establish what the reasoning for the capacity numbers are based on, if I can. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the fire risk assessment, as you say, would be based on a combination of the available square footage of the premises, the number of toilets and the number of exits. I entirely accept that. And in terms of the children could be staying in the rooms, yes, I entirely accept that's right. But candidly, I don't see how that takes us any further forward. There will be an awful lot of hotels, pubs, bars, restaurants around the country where there will be children in residences above and in immediate proximity to life.
Right.
Hello.
Can I bring Mr. Murray in before I bring Mr. Andrews in, please?
Oh, thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to return to the point that Mr. Whedon raised regarding the length of the licence, which seems to me that coupled with noise seems to be the nub of the issues around the licensing. And I'd just like to point out, first of all, that the previous boutique hotel with its small restaurants associated with it was a very different beast from a busy restaurant with a much larger capacity and turnover. So we're dealing with a very different situation here. And the fundamental problem is this is a very quiet residential area. The only other businesses around are on the esplanade, where the cliff protects surrounding houses from the noise. And not only is it a quiet residential area, it's an extremely quiet residential area with no major roads. And if you come here in the evening, the background noise is almost zero. That means any noise is an intrusion into the quiet environment. And I also find it somewhat disingenuous of the applicants to pointing out that the use of the outside garden will only be in the summer months, because that's exactly when residents will be needing to have their windows open in the evening and will be wanting to sit in the gardens and enjoy the peace and quiet. So I just want to support Mr. Whedon's point and question why the late night licensing is needed. Again, when all other premises around in Penarth close much earlier. This is going to be a major imposition on residents in a very quiet area. It's just the wrong location. And if you want to have a business like this and put it in a residential area, you're going to have to meet those residential area requirements of finishing earlier in the evening and keeping the noise levels right down. Thank you.
May I just pick up on the issue of capacity, sorry, before Mr. Andrews comes in. The capacity of the premises hasn't changed. The fundamentals of the premises are the same. There is nothing different about the capacity now than the previous license, the license before that, or candidly, the license before that. And the fundamentals of where the bar is, where the restaurant is, where the garden is, are all identical, or all but identical, to the previous operations. But Mr. Andrews, I've interrupted you enough. You go ahead.
It's okay. Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Ian, thank you for the question. Yeah, I mean, the licensing, the timings of closure and what we're applying for on the basis of the reservation allocation time. So if you're a table of 6 and you book at 9 o'clock, which is the final sitting, it's advertised that it's a 3-hour allocation. So we based it on that. And if you're asking why do they need that long, I mean, it's a premium high-end environment. People have starters, mains, desserts, aperitif, and ultimately they have coffee and digestif to finish. So I think rather than kicking people out prematurely, diluting our spend per head, and also maybe diluting their experience as well, we've maxed that out as much as we feel fit, so that they can have the full experience and enjoy their time with us and leave at a suitable time. That's the only. It's got nothing to do with late night bar or people being admitted well into the evening and having lots of cocktails. It's more for our diners, if anything. So personally, I don't foresee lots of guests coming in late on at night, drinking heavily and making a nuisance, etc. It's more for our diners who are able to book at 9 o'clock at the latest and then hopefully have a full experience without having to be kicked out early. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
Oh.
Right. I cannot see.
Sorry, Councillor, can I respond to Mr. Andrews through the chair, please?
Yes, if you wish to.
Thanks. Thanks, Mr. Andrews. I sort of, well, I don't really. I think you've got to adapt your style, though. You cannot say that our diners want this. It's what the people around want as well. I don't think we're being unreasonable by asking you to close in the weekday. I'm not saying put people on the street, stop serving alcohol in the weekday at a reasonable time in line with other establishments which are not in residential areas. I don't think that's an unreasonable request for the people around you to make your life, I would have thought, more comfortable. I hear what you say, but you just say the last orders for dining is 9 o'clock. Most restaurants, I've got a house, I'm lucky to have a house in Padstow. I think most of the restaurants, Rick Steen's place, Nathan Outlaw's place, they say the table's yours for 2 hours. I think you've got to adapt, bearing in mind where the property is, in the conservation area it is, these times. And certainly you would not have had as many objections, I'm sure of this, if you said, we're shutting in the weekday at 10:30, and on the weekends, we're shutting at 11 o'clock. I think the people would have been mindful that this was, bearing in mind nobody wanted this at all back in 2004, and we pushed the parameters. I think that would have been looked at more favourably, Mr. Andrews. on that point, I think you can come back and tell me what you think. Also, then we need to move on, if we agree, I think, between the chair, some sort of correct timing of the establishment, we'd certainly need to move on to the 10s. But can we go back to that and just answer what I've just put to you, if that's okay? Thank you.
If I just pick up this point, if I may, Chair, the proposal is broadly recognised licensing hours for restaurants and bars since the introduction of the Licensing Act. The references to 2004, I'm afraid we have to recognise are 21 years ago and under a separate legislative format, the Licensing Act 1964. To pick up Mr. Andrews' point, the point I think he fairly makes that needs to be reflected on, that the national guidance and the policy, I think, touch on, is having people able to be engaged in a hospitality environment after midnight is not illegitimate. Does that mean the entire premises will be full? No. We know that the garden and outside area is significantly restricted, but that some of the later booking customers be allowed to remain in the premises without having their evening inappropriately curtailed is, we believe, legitimate. So I'm really sorry, but we don't accept the point. And obviously it will be a matter for the committee to consider. But the hours on a Friday and Saturday until 1 a.m. are not illegitimate in 2025, and nor is midnight illegitimate in the earlier part of the week. Indeed, the midnight is in line with the previous license, plus and then there was 30 minutes drinking up time, as you might find in any one of dozens of premises in the Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Phipps. Thank you for answering as well on behalf of Mr. Andrews. I would have preferred Mr. Andrews to reply, as he's the gentleman running the establishment. I hear what you say with regard to trading, but we still got to ask the question. Forget about 2004, fine, but we still got to ask the question, is the times acceptable for the premises and its surroundings? I think Hickman's were looking for a later position. They've got back to 11 o'clock because of the residential surroundings. You know, we're not asking the restaurant to shut at 8, Mr. Phipps. We don't want that. What we want is what we think is reasonable to live in an area where we live. And I would have thought Mr. Andrews would probably agree with the residents as well to make his life more comfortable in that environment. I just don't understand the reasoning. I understand what Mr. Andrews wants, but it can't. He's got to adapt his business plan to the surroundings, not what everybody else does in the area. Although I'm quoting Penarth, because the other establishments in the residential areas, like the Pilot, the serves food, they all shut at 11 o'clock. The Custom House is exactly the same. We're not asking for somebody not to open on a Tuesday or Wednesday. We're asking for it to be reasonable with the residents. Thank you. Mr. Andrews?
I'll answer. I'm afraid I am his representative. And I'm afraid, bluntly, we don't agree is the only response that I think has integrity here. That we self-evidently don't agree. That is why we are in a licensing committee hearing. We believe that the hours, as the responsible authorities also agree, are legitimate hours for a premises of this sort in 2025. I'm sorry that we don't agree, but it is the reality of the position. We don't agree.
So, Mr. Phipps, on behalf of Mr. Andrews, you don't agree, but all the street around him and the residents think what your proposal is unreasonable. And I certainly don't understand why Mr. Andrews would push this point, bearing in mind enough money could be made, I'm sure, up to 11 o'clock at night on the weekends and 10:30 in the week without any special licenses. Thank you.
I've got Mr. Gray's hand up again.
Yeah, if I could, please, Chair. I support the comments that Mr. Whedon has suggested. Unfortunately, I disagree with what Mr. Phipps has commented on, and I'll specify those reasons why. A document in response to the representations that were made came from the director, Mr. Andrews, and I quote, "If according to the response to representations objecting to the proposed licensing hours and recorded live music, and I quote, your intention is to modify these to reflect the weight of objections, then why is Mr. Phipps rejecting what Mr. Whedon just said? We are asking for the hours to be modified in response to our objections. And even Mr. Andrews has identified that in his response. So I would ask, you've got Mr. Phipps saying one thing, Mr. Andrews saying another, and to the licensing committee, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job. You do it day in, day out. Just be mindful that there's a lot of mixed signals from the applicant and his representative. And I hope you appreciate that. I'm out. Thank you.
Just to be clear, Councillor, that is, I'm afraid, not right or fair. The letter which you will have the opportunity to look at, I'm sure you already have, that is Appendix E. Appreciate one of the councillors hasn't had a chance to see it, but there's a letter to the representors, and it makes the point that the hours are being amended to restrict the hours following the representations. I entirely accept it doesn't go as far as some of the residents would like, but the letter is clear that the hours are to be restricted and are less than that which was first applied for. And that was explained by Mr. Lane in his report, and that's set out in your committee report. But that is as far as we are minded to go, believing that the application is legitimate in all the circumstances. So it is not contradictory. The letter is clear, we're reducing the hours, and I hope I have been clear we're not reducing the hours further before the committee today.
Mr. Gray, did you want to come back in, or is this a legacy hand? Thank you.
Legacy hand, sorry.
Right, thank you. Right. I think we've... Mr. Whedon, did you want to come back in?
I'm not sure what happens now, Chair, because I've never been to a meeting like this before, but is it possible that we could suggest what we think what I think, and anybody else can chip in, obviously, are reasonable hours and what are not reasonable hours for you to consider? Or do you just make your mind up based on the information you've been given already? And I'm also mindful that we haven't covered whatsoever in any way, shape or form the 10s, which really are problematical, and in my opinion shouldn't be granted at all. So I'll leave you with that, Councillor, if I may.
I don't know whether our legal officer wants to come back in or not.
Yes, Chair. Well, you've obviously heard that what the applicant is applying for. You've heard the objections to that application. It's a matter for you to take into consideration and reach a conclusion on. I think it's quite clear the points the parties are making. We're not here today to consider a 10 application, so that isn't for consideration.
Thank you for that, Richard. Okay, right. I thank you all. Mr. Gray, you've got your hand up again. Or is it a legacy hand?
No, I have got my hand up, Chair. I was under the impression that I would have an opportunity to speak, as if I haven't done enough already, I think, hear you ask or say. But I've got a lot of points with regards to the licensing objectives.
Can I interrupt you there? That would be under the interested parties item of the agenda. So I'll bring you back in then. Okay.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. You just made the point that I was going to raise with you there. A couple of members of the public in the gallery here have also said that obviously they'd like to make further points.
Yes.
But we've slightly gone away from the usual practice, and there's been a lot of to and fro and discussion, which covers some of this. There obviously isn't a case from the responsible authority because that submission was made in writing as part of the papers. So there's no one here from a responsible authority to make any case for the committee to consider today. However, as part of the case for the opposed, I didn't know how you wanted to handle that because obviously there are a number of interested parties. So I didn't know whether or not you wanted to call people through into...
Well, I was going to say about the next responsible authority, there's nobody here today, so I'd move on to the next item, which is interesting parties. So I don't know which order we want to take it in.
Would one of you in the chamber like to make a case first?
That probably be easier that way, wouldn't it?
Please feel free. Miss Evans is coming on to make a point.
Oh, right. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thank you for listening to this from the perspective of the local residents. I'm going to apologise now. Some bits might end up repeated from what we've already discussed, but I'm not very good at following and often lose my point. And this is all totally new to me. I'm really not used to this kind of environment. I've worked in the NHS and things had to be very objective and clear. Yeah, there's a lot of bits that I've been confused about. One bit we need to go back later is things like the tens and these things, that the changes that have constantly arisen has made this very confusing for us as residents as to what the operation is going to be and what is being suggested by Silures. I think I can say I understand it. Silures Home House has started operating as a restaurant, but I think they wish to expand their business to late night events or provision and to special events. We remain confused as such a high proportion of information only speaks about the restaurant, but the licensing and the requests are all about these late night times and evening times. And so my concerns are regarding the late night operations and the special events. So an operation that takes last cover at 9 o'clock, 2 hours to eat up, that is not going to have a huge impact on us. But the late night operation and special events will. So a traditional restaurant in a residential area creates a small amount of disruption, but the late nights will cause a huge impact on our amenity and the amenity of the wider community of Penarth. The area around Home House is a residential area with family houses and flats. The majority of people have moved to this area due to its proximity to the sea and parks and appreciate peace and nature. Home House has properties on 3 sides, some only a garden fence or path away from it. It has very limited parking, which results in all the disruption of late night leavers and arrivers if they have late night opening occurring right outside our bedroom windows and not on site. If Silvio's continues to operate as a restaurant, I've said its last cover is 9:15, and then we've got the 2 hours drinking up time. And also that does mean that as a community, it's a community facility. But if it's other events, late night events, it's often closed to the public for hen do's and for wedding do's. So our concerns are disturbance of sleep and loss of amenity. The majority of us go to bed at 10 p.m. and children considerably earlier. Any groups leaving after 11 p.m., especially if they've had a long period of drinking, are highly likely to wake people from deep sleep. Parking outside our houses is an issue as people shout to friends, slam doors and sometimes argue when leaving in groups. Sleep disturbance, even if occasional or, if it's one night a week, has a very large health implication, including increased cardiovascular events, increased blood pressure, diabetes, obesity, depression, stroke, and in addition, children suffer poor school attainment, developmental delay, and increased sleepwalking, night terrors, and bedwetting. We can all manage the occasional late night and partying, usually followed by a few days' recovery, but repeated disturbances are very detrimental. Most premises close in Penarth by 11 p.m. and are increasingly doing so to reduce nuisance. There's a few properties lately in the High Street that have reduced their licensing hours because there's been lots of disturbance in them. And even the stadium has been mentioned, closes by 10:30. So we're just asking, please respect night time. Cilia's and hospitality in general may have a nocturnal existence, but we as residents have jobs, schools and lives to lead. Many of us are up and about by 6 a.m. in the morning. We need a good night's sleep. And, you know, we feel we're entitled to a good night's sleep. The other issue was loss of amenity due to large events. Previous home house had restrictions on use and then when events were allowed, there were fewer of them, but they were disruptive. To date, Cilia's has only had a few events, but these have not been the largest. So they're advertising for events for 200 people plus staff, and we have to assume they were looking for these on a regular basis from the requested licensing hours and the advertising. The wedding they had on the temporary licence was disruptive, and there are the photos and videos to highlight this. But it was a relatively small wedding, which I would guess had about 100 guests, and was on a Sunday, wrapping up at 9 p.m. If Cilia's has the opportunity to operate in the way we assume they'd like, there will be significantly more disruption. You know, and we've also mentioned residents have a need to enjoy their garden and outdoor space on summer weekends, to socialise with friends and their children to be able to do likewise. And this would be severely restricted if Cilia's holds events up to 12 to 15 weeks of the summer. This lasts from May bank holiday until September. In addition, the spa is still being advertised for rental and will increase appeal to the hen and wedding market, as well as increasing footfall at the hotel. So we're just saying, please can you look at some significant restrictions to the late night trading and large events rather than the compromise offered by Cilia's to reduce sales of alcohol from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m, restricting commercial deliveries from between 11 p.m. and 7 a.m, i.e. night hours, and for staff to leave quietly, and closing for 3 weeks in January, which is will not really improve our sleep or amenity at all. We feel both late night trading and large events are totally inappropriate in a residential area. We're asking, please can we propose trading in line with the majority of restaurants in Penarth, i.e. close at 11 p.m, licensing until 10:30. This would stop the potential for drinkers to come on after closing elsewhere and the disruption of them arriving and leaving, in addition to limiting the time and hence the consumption and disruption of those who have had a long night at home house. Also, for all music to be behind closed doors and windows at all times, as is imposed in a number of establishments, for example, Hickman's, the Albion, including for any special events. If the garden is used, there is no need for music. People coming to dine wish to talk with those with them. And that we have no temporary events notices, because these are going to be the most disruptive for us. And just asking you, please can each one of you consider what it would be like for you or your parents, children or grandchildren, and of this changes and the consequence to their amenity and health if you had to live with a premises in the street which holds events for 200 and late night trading until 1 a.m. And please could you impose licensing which protect us from this or future operators implementing the maximum extent of the licensing that is provided, because we're actually fearful of what could be provided. So thank you for listening, and yeah, I'll let other people continue.
Matthew, can I ask who else wants to speak in the chamber?
I think we've covered. I think Nikki covered very comprehensively all the points that we've gone over today. I think that there will be other questions, particularly around the TENs. I think that we don't understand, and if and when these will be granted, there will be issues. And also, I'm still confused why Mr. Andrews, and this is not to Mr. Phipps, by his own sheer admission, that he wasn't aware of the the advertising, why Mr. Andrews categorically states his advertisement that he will have a full licence as from tomorrow. Well, I'm not sure if the chair can answer that, but I know Mr. Phipps has tried and failed because he wasn't aware of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Just covering this point now. Apologies for if the message was unclear. It was more a post on the basis, if we were to receive our license, this is how we are to celebrate. We obviously need to plan. We're a business with a license or not. We need to plan for the future and prepare. And also the incentive for guests is a 25% discount off food. So we're conscious, that a decision needs to be made today. We never assumed that we would get our license, and we're certainly not spreading misinformation that we've received our license already. We're just, if anything, advertising an incentive that's going to be active from tomorrow, and to tie into, I guess, the hopefully good news that we're going to get, that the license is going to be granted. That's why we pitched it in that way. But like I say, I apologise for it being unclear. That was the whole thinking process behind that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, thank you, Mr. Andrews. It does categorically state, and I will quote, next week we'll be raising a glass as we celebrate receiving our licence to serve alcohol, and to mark the occasion, we're excited to launch an exclusive subscribe offer.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean,
it's in black and white to me, and I think it's in black and white to all the residents who have seen it. And I'm not sure if I can.
I hear you, Ian. Yeah, we were confident, and maybe in hindsight we could have phrased it differently, not I guess assuming that the license was going to be granted. But yeah, it's more on the basis of if we do receive the good news, this is what we're doing. There was no sort of, we haven't had any information from the committee to state otherwise. It was more an incentive for midweek trades, if anything else. Thank you.
Okay, so it was a mistake in reality. Thank you. Also, Mr. Andrews, I'm not sure if I can ask this. What do you think of the reduced hours that have been requested very reasonably by all of the residents? In your opinion, please?
Well, the conditions we've applied for are there for a reason, whatever decision the committee make on any compromise or I guess any outcome of this, then that's on them.
Okay, because obviously when I looked at the videos for Hickman's, this was brought up and the applicant withdrew at the meeting. You're not willing to do that at this moment in time, to withdraw the later hours?
I'd have to double check with Matthew Phipps on that.
Sorry, forgive me, Mr. Whedon. No, I did try and explain it earlier, and apologies if it wasn't clear. The hours that we have proposed are the hours we are inviting the committee to grant. We appreciate you don't want those hours granted. That's when it becomes a matter for the committee. The reference to the other premises, I can't help you with. I know nothing about the other premises and how they conducted their affairs or their licensing hearing. But the hours that we have proposed are those set out at the start of the day, explained by Mr. Lane, hopefully explained by myself, and are now in front of the committee for them to make a determination.
Okay, so Mr. Phipps, Mr. Andrews, what you're saying at this moment in time, that you are requesting in a residential area hours greater than any other licensed property restaurant in Penarth. Is that correct?
No, that's not. I have no idea what the other licensed premises are in Penarth.
Mr. Phipps, I do, and it is more, I can assure you.
Mr. Whedon, please, I have no idea what the other licenses are for the entire whole of Penarth. These are the hours on an individual basis that we're putting forward that have met with the Environmental Health Officer and police approval, as they have not served representation. So I'm sorry, we don't agree. That's why we are in front of a committee.
No, I totally understand that, but I just thought Mr. Andrews had the opportunity to withdraw those late licences, but obviously chooses not to do so. Thank you.
I believe Richard Price, our principal lawyer, wished to come in. Is that correct? No? He did come on screen. I don't know what happened. Obviously,
I think the need to make a point might have passed, Chair. So
Right.
back to
Is there anybody else in the chamber that wishes to speak today?
Not in the chamber, thank you, Chair. So
Right.
Mr. Whedon did want to make it.
Sorry, Chair. Are we going to cover? I know Nikki's comprehensively covered the terms and conditions of the TENS. I think your Vale of Glamorgan lawyer just said that we're not covering that today. Kirsty Evans said it would be covered today. So I'm a little bit confused because I think we're all confused about what the TENS terms and conditions are. Mr. Phipps did mention that any TENS would be within what is granted or not, if I'm jumping the gun, within the standard licence. Is this correct, or am I missing something here? Sorry.
A temporary event notice is a completely separate application. And in terms of a late night 10, the only people who can object to that are the police and environmental health. So there would have to be an application that was for consideration for objections from either the police or environmental health to respond to. We're not here today to deal with a 10, and we can't prejudice any future applications that may or may not be received.
Okay, thank you for confirming that.
Thank you, Richard. I will now go to our people who are online. The hand I can see raised up is Spencer Gray, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be quick with this. It is quite long-winded. I'm Spencer Gray, representing Adrian Gray at 12 Drosselmore Marine Parade, Penarth. I wish to start by saying that Mr. Gray strongly opposes the licence application submitted by Celures Penarth Limited, Home House. As a member of the public, I do too. Mr. Gray's objection is based on the following objectives: crime and disorder, public safety, public nuisance, protection of children from harm. I'll comment on these in more detail. Mr. Gray would like to ask a number of questions, and I will ask those whilst I go through to the applicant so he may understand the intentions of the business and the purpose of the application. And there appears to be a significant change to the proposed licence and hours for just, we quote, as the applicant has quoted, a neighbourhood restaurant, or as we've heard it, first and foremost, a restaurant with a bar facility. On this basis alone, Mr. Gray deems the application inappropriate for the location and the type of business conducted. So to the committee, please understand my father's objections are heavily based on several factors. Having lived at his address for 45 plus years, like most residents living in the area, they moved here for the peace and tranquility that the area provided. However, my father objects on the following grounds in line with licensing objectives. And what I would like to say is whenever I've spoken, I've got my father's doors wide open and you haven't heard anything in the background, such as the still and quietness of this location. And I'm sure if there was a wedding, you would hear it. So crime and disorder. Inevitably, there will be at some point crime and disorder associated with alcohol. Alcohol is implicated in an enormous amount of crime and disorder, and the effects on victims can be devastating. It is a factor in around 49% of all violent crimes in Wales. Mr. Gray's concern is not what can be controlled by management on the premises, but what can't be controlled off the premises when patrons leave. Those controls lay with the police and this committee, and an understanding of the surrounding area of the proposed licence area premises. At this point, Mr. Gray would like to welcome you to visit the premises to better understand the location of the hotel and the residents in close proximity. But that's for another day, and that's a welcoming decision for you to make. If you want to come, my father will oblige and make tea and coffee. Mr. Gray states this is a very, very quiet, leafy part of the town where one could hear a pin drop or the lightest of footsteps walking across Cotswold stone drives at night. The reason for that quote is because Home House, their driveway is Cotswold stones, and you can hear people in the still of night walking on the up and down the drive. The restrictions to the license to sell alcohol should be in line with the type of business and the applicant intends to pursue. Mr. Gray does not believe that the sale of alcohol is warranted beyond 2,300 hours on any day in Penarth Town, regardless of the business, except for a one-off event such as New Year's Eve. Crime is not just limited to the patrons of the proposed licensed premises. Crime is attracted to areas where the congregation of large numbers occurs. In this case, Mr. Gray refers to the blatant disregard for the highway code by patrons or delivery and dray vehicles visiting the premises by illegally parking. I still think it's an issue under the public nuisance, but that's my last bit on that. At this point, Mr. Gray would like to remind the committee that the Vale of Glamorgan proposed to charge for parking on the seafront, and that will impact on the business and patrons attending the premises and the residents in the locality. Crime and disorder may appear relatively low in the case of the proposed licence. However, Mr. Gray is concerned that the effects of trivial antisocial behaviours are likely to be extremely high as a result of the proposed licensing hours, and playing of music may have on those with protected characteristics under the Equality Act, such as the elderly or disabled living with close proximity of said premises. Well, I think you'll see, Chair, on screen, I have one eye covered. I suffered from a traumatic brain injury in the last 12 months, and peace and quiet is very beneficial for someone like myself, as I will get onto children and the elderly later on. Mr. Gray has witnessed patrons vacating the premises, and several glasses and bottles have been found in residents' gardens and hedgings of the park, including the fabulous ice cream parlour, which is a peaceful spot for a coffee, I believe, with some spectacular views. Will the applicant ensure the patrons will not be permitted to enter or exit through the east gate, gate's bottom of beer garden, at any time unless in an emergency, to avoid unpleasant behaviours such as urinating in the lane of an evening? Public safety. Is the granting of a licence for the times outlined in the application ensuring the safety of restaurant customers, hotel users and staff within the proposed licensing premises, including compliance with health and safety regulations, fire safety standards and the fire safety order when it comes to capacity limits and your fire exits? We note there have been some alterations to a fire exit leading from the premises to the lane which runs parallel between Home House and my father's property. Are the fire service aware of the alterations, having breached planning and building control, and why is that? One would argue it's another case of the applicant or owner of the property just doing as they please to get what they want. Mr. Gray's concerns and objections are a threat to the public safety. If the fire exit is used in an emergency, then the exiting of the premises could injure a member of the public passing by, or a patron exiting the premises because of the sheer nature of the drop to ground level, which is in breach of the Fire Safety Order 2005. Mr. Gray believes the location, namely the height, is beyond regulations and is a safety issue to the users, occupiers exiting the building in an emergency. This highlights to the committee and why Mr. Gray previously asked what the occupancy numbers are based on. Mr. Gray believes that the fire service are not aware of the amendments made to the exit when providing a representation of no objection, because they conducted a tabletop representation. Public safety is a concern for Mr. Gray, as we have already mentioned, that alcohol is implicated in an enormous amount of crime and disorder. Misuse of alcohol can have a powerful, harmful impact on families, such as drink driving, drunken behaviour. And I'll refer to a number of years ago, somebody drink driving ruined, I think it was a family of 6, and 4 of their cars were parked on Marine Parade, and the drink driver wiped them all out. So it has effects on many, many people. Mr. Gray does not believe that the proposed licensing times applied for encourage public safety. The premise is relatively remote, and Mr. Gray believes that the extension of licensing hours in conjunction with late night refreshment times promotes and encourages a stop-on facility for the remainder of Penarth to travel and access when the town's other public houses close. I accept that Mr. Andrews has nipped in the bud with that, and that's not the purpose. However, it's hardly appropriate for what Home House website is advertising. And they quote, "Coastal luxury awaits at Home House Studios and Suites located on Penarth's exclusive Millionaires Row, once a boutique hotel praised by the Guardian paper as a rather sexy little hotel. To ensure public safety, Mr. Gray asks what proposals do the Vale of Glamorgan intend to take with regards to traffic management. I'll miss out the next bit. Parking, to allow residents to exit their drives, and in the case of Mr. Gray, the cul-de-sac that he resides on. There have been a number of cases where they are parked illegally on double yellows, and it has made it awkward to get in and out of the cul-de-sac. I am in talks with the police on that since their representation, and they've contacted me during this meeting. In the last couple of days, rats have been seen in my father's garden, and the attraction of rats can only have been attributed to the premises' poor management of waste and recycling, as this has not been an issue to the prior to the hotel reopening. Therefore, Mr. Gray proposes conditions in relation to waste, which I'll later go into. Lastly, traffic congestion is a cause for concern under the licensing objectives of public safety. Ambulance, fire service, and Her Majesty's Coast Guard station, which is sited or situated in close proximity to Marine Parade, would normally use as a main arterial route to proceed to the seafront and the bay. Detour will delay response times for emergency, and entry into a one-way system, Cliff Road to Richmond Road, is only permissible in the Highway Code if directed by a police officer. This problem will be exacerbated when parking restrictions are imposed by the Vale of Glamorgan. Protection of children from harm. As we're all aware, there is a legal responsibility on licensed premises holders to protect children from harm, which includes safeguarding children from physical harm, psychological harm, moral harm, and sexual exploitation. As you have identified that you do not manage the hotel aspect of the premises, how can you control and protect the hotel users, namely young children with their parents, from the implications of your proposed license application? Licensees must consider the risks on but not restricted to the premises who are customers, employees, visitors, public or residents in the surrounding area. A restaurant with restricted license times and conditions would safeguard children with relatively ease. But in the case of this application, Mr. Gray believes that the psychological harm to children from the licensed premises is a greater risk than anyone is discussing. The request to play music outdoors is hardly in keeping with the area, and for the last 20 years has been controlled and managed to the extent that no complaints have been recorded. Yet, the granting of this proposed license application, Mr. Gray believes, is detrimental to the future of our children, grandchildren, and so on, or even the elderly. My father is 76. He sometimes acts like a child, so I would class him in the factor, and his mental health has deteriorated since the opening of Home House. As mentioned earlier, if the applicant has no control over the hotel reservations, then the potential safeguarding of children on the premises becomes more prevalent. Mr. Gray does not believe the proposed license application protects or safeguards children enough to prevent everlasting harm in years to come. Therefore, Mr. Gray believes that the desire to host events such as wedding, stag or hen parties are totally inappropriate, and on that basis alone, the proposed application should be refused or severely restricted. Mr. Gray also believes that if the music element of the license is granted, this could encourage teenagers to congregate in the adjacent park and shelter, drinking and experience a party of their own with music played at the proposed premises. Lastly, I hope the committee accepts that the proposed license application is more suitable for a premises that sits in Greyfriars Road or Wellfield Road, where the sister restaurant is, that is surrounded by shops and other entertainment venues, and not for the location that Home House resides in. Even their website, the hotel side website, advertises the following. Rated by the Sunday Telegraph, one of UK's top 10 most prestigious roads, Marine Parade is a place of quiet grandeur, sea views, and exclusive living. Guests at Home House enjoy serene surroundings with the Bristol Channel on their doorstep, along with beautifully restored interiors, and pay homage to the building's historic past. That was extracted from Sunday Telegraph 2025. Given that, on behalf of Mr. Gray, I've quoted on many occasions the peacefulness of the area, it is an area where children can thrive, they can peacefully play in their gardens, they can read and study for school, but above all else, they can sleep in peace and quiet with windows open on a hot summer's day, without fear of psychological harm, as I did for many years as a child. It is at this point I would reiterate that sleep is one of the most important essential functions for both physical and mental well-being. It allows the body and mind to rest, recover, and process information from the day. I'll talk about sleep in a bit more detail. I won't go too much because one of the other residents has already talked about it. But I really want to stress the harm that the lack of sleep has on children, let alone everyone. Therefore, you understand that Mr. Gray objects to the proposed licence application in its entirety. Public nuisance. Mr. Gray has been very clear in his objections prior to this hearing, yet he would like to share with the committee that complaints have been made officially to shared regulatory services prior to this hearing. We believe that the public nuisance will inevitably occur within weeks if it hasn't already occurred, and the types of new nuisances are likely to be as follows: noise pollution, including nuisance noise, criminal damage, street drinking, artificial light from premises, smoke, tobacco, vape aromas, smoke fumes or gases, including offensive smells from waste, fear of provocation of violence, nuisance traffic. Mr. Gray has already made his representations, but reported public nuisance on 3 occasions with shared regulatory services, those being air pollution, namely offensive smells from the waste collection area, reference 1214986, noise pollution, namely recorded music outdoors, reference number 1215029. Nuisance traffic, namely illegal parking, double yellows and mounting the curb, causing damage to pavements, exposing trips, congestion and blocking of the highway. Reference VOG 735490113. Mr. Gray is concerned, as I am, having held a personal license previously a long time ago, that the applicant is, in part M of his application, is solely focused on managing of intoxicated guests and not of his intentions, actions that will affect others. We've mentioned to death about the 25% off. Noise pollution and nuisance noise. As mentioned previously, the peaceful, quiet and tranquil locality of Home House will be affected and will have consequences of those living locally. Noise that can be heard at the dead of night, evening, are not limited to are music being played, patrons leaving the establishment to the front of the premises, crushing of stone underfoot, or a vehicle like that of a firefighter jet taxiing to its runway, patrons leaving the establishment in joviality, talking or arguing whilst loitering outside the premises or leaving the area, car doors slamming, engines running, droning operating noise of the kitchen extraction system, rubbish being disposed of at the end of the night in the refuse collection area. Further noises can be heard in the daylight, sunset hours, and are not limited to delivery vehicles, including increased traffic, which is likely to be further exacerbated with changes to parking conditions. Noise from running refrigerated vehicles, refuse and recycling collections, with glass collections being the loudest and piercing sound experienced. Research suggests that the noise from glass bottle bank collections can cause hearing loss, primarily with workers. Well, it's a stone's throw, literally reaching distance from my father's property. Music from vehicles traversing Marine Parade, including audible reverse warning devices from delivery vehicles reversing into Mr. Gray's cul-de-sac. Increased public activity, including foul language. Those are just a few. Therefore, any minutest form of noise beyond 2100 hours can be heard very easily. Add to this, if you're a neighbour who has a reactive dog that barks, the smallest little noise, that dog will bark, and it can be disturbing for the residents and others if they can hear it. So, artificial light from premises. Mr. Gray is concerned that later opening hours will mean that artificial lighting will remain on for longer periods. This is needed for safety reasons, but will give rise to nuisance to neighbouring properties and residents. Currently, the hotel is lit up like a Christmas tree to the extent that Mr. Gray thought the lighthouse on Flathome was stuck pointing in his direction. Mr. Gray suggests that when the premises adheres to its responsibility and illuminates the fire exit on the lane in line with fire safety regulations, this may cause a nuisance to residents in the locality. Smoke, tobacco and vaping. Smells from smoking and vaping are very much a nuisance if you are a non-smoker, can cause lasting anxiety problems. Tobacco and cannabis smoke is pungent and can linger and travel some distance, entering through windows, doors on a warm, close summer's evening. The smells are quite off-putting, where children, I hear often say, "What's that smell?" The first introduction to cannabis, which I believe is still an illegal drug. Now, as parents and grandparents, Mr. Gray must contend with the sweet smells of vaping, which appears to be more attractive to children and adult non-smokers for that matter. This could be placed under the other licensing objectives, I'm sure. So I seriously ask the committee to consider how the premises will manage this for its patrons and staff. The smoking area traditionally has been the bin area, which is a reaching distance from my father and totally inappropriate so close to residential properties. Smoke, fumes or gases, including offensive smells from waste. It's widely researched that spending time outdoors is extremely beneficial for your mental health. Properties along Marine Parade enjoy the luxury of considerable sized gardens. It's what attracted people and the peacefulness that lured people to the area to buy a property here. Whether as a resident you are enjoying the peacefulness, playing, swimming, entertaining children, or relaxing, the issue of offensive smells due to rotting food waste can be devastatingly hard to bear. This has been a severe problem in recent weeks until a solution is implemented. At this point, on behalf of all residents, having experienced this myself firsthand, I would like an apology off the applicant, as his company and management have hidden behind lies and blamed others when it's quite a simple problem to resolve, in Mr. Gray's opinion. How you would want patrons arriving to a high-end premises and enduring those smells on arrival at front of houses beyond us. As mentioned previously, traffic congestion is not only an issue under the public safety, but is a nuisance when trying to enjoy downtime and relax in a garden inside with doors and windows open. Traffic has been at a standstill on a few occasions over the years, and although not entirely attributed to the applicant's premises, except when hosting an event, this and an increase in visitors to the seafront exacerbates the issue. I refer to the applicant's representation of support and ask that this is taken lightly as it's evidence of one day when they had no event at that time. With such traffic congestion, where vehicles are at a standstill, the fumes from running engines can be noisy and the fumes detrimental to health. Fumes from cooking are another nuisance, but presently, Mr. Gray quite enjoys the smell now and again, because he goes, "Oh, that smells nice." But I can assure you it will become a nuisance. Fear of provocation of violence is defined in Section 4 of the Public Order Act 1986 and is an offence that involves using threatening or abusive or insulting words or behaviour or displaying similar written or visual material with the intent to cause someone to believe that an immediate unlawful violence will be used against them or another to provoke the immediate use of unlawful violence. In essence, over the years, Mr. Gray has experienced the above. There's been several occasions where foul language and arguments have disturbed his daughters or grandchildren's sleep. In fear of provocation of violence and potential criminal damage to his property, Mr. Gray has sought to ignore and deal with such impact in-house. When asked if the police attended, it was met with, "What's the point? They were gone after a few minutes." I have explained the need to contact 101 or the premises in future to record evidence in the event incident log if it becomes a regular occurrence. Challenging such occurrences previously, when Mr. Gray was younger and living alone, wouldn't have been an issue, and neither would be contacting the police, having to stay awake waiting for the police to attend. However, life has changed, and the fears, stress, anxiety, and depression are more prevalent in the world that we live in today. Nuisance traffic. Mr. Gray has identified various traffic concerns from illegal parking, congestion, fumes from vehicles, delivery vehicles, delayed public transport, reducing visitor numbers, minor damage to parked vehicles, and a driver's music. They all add to the nuisance and extra traffic on the road presents that will only get worse if events are conducted on a weekly basis. And as Mr. Gray has already identified, Imagine this at your neighbour's house every weekend or day. You would soon see an impact on your quality of life, either psychologically or physically or both. It brings me on to sleep, which is an underlying factor on all licensing objectives in some way, shape or form. Before I go on to sleep, I will say that Mr. Gray categorically objects to any temporary events notices based on an impact to the quality of life and the location of the premises. I remember your legal representative saying that that's nothing to do with us. However, all I would say is Mr. Gray doesn't understand temporary events notices. I don't think some of the residents do, so that's why I put it in there. Totally object. Sleep is a body process that allows your body to rest, repair, restore itself. You need sleep to function properly. I could go on and on. I've got another 3 pages. I'm going to finish there. But sleep, if we don't get it, if we don't get peace and quiet, we won't get sleep, we will suffer. And with the NHS on its knees, I would say that the impact on us and the impact on other professionals, it's too much to bear. So that's, I do have, Mr. Gray does have recommendations, which if you're happy, I'll continue with, Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises, Sunday to Thursday, 12 till 10:30, Friday, Saturday, 12 till 11, New Year's Eve until midnight, recorded music indoors only, Sunday to Thursday, 12 till 10:30, Friday, Saturday, 12 till 2300 hours, New Year's Eve until midnight, live music indoors only, Friday, Saturday only, 12 till 10 o'clock at night, New Year's Eve until midnight. Outside rear garden, times of use, Sunday 12 till 8, Monday to Thursday 12 till 9:30, Friday and Saturday 11 till 9:30, New Year's Eve, he's put 10:30. Suggested conditions of license, no provision of late night refreshments, no tents to be permitted in the heart of a residential area, no outdoor music to be played or broadcast into the garden at any time. 3, patrons to vacate the garden area no more than 15 minutes after finish time. 4, no outdoor temporary structures permitted in the garden area. 5, a designated smoking vaping area to be outside in accordance with legislation and restricted to designated zone, which are not directly adjacent to neighbouring properties. Ideal location would be the east end of the garden premises. 6, premises to adopt procedures for staff to regularly check and ensure doors and windows are closed, preventing the broadcasting of music to the outdoors. 7, CCTV to be turned away from overlooking neighbouring properties. He's not aware of it, but cameras do look or could be seen to be looking into his garden. Kitchen extraction system to be isolated when not in use to prevent noise pollution. That can be heard distinctly at night. Deliveries are to be at set times between 9 in the morning and 12 midday, Monday to Saturday. Alternative delivery point to the east of the premises through gates of beer garden where loading and unloading is more accessible. Now, if it's at the east of the garden, my father is of the opinion that those delivery times could be expanded on because it wouldn't impact on anyone on Marine Parade. General waste and food waste to be collected twice a week, namely a Monday and Friday, moved to the east of premises where deliveries are suggested. General waste should be collected to the east of the premises and cleaned and bins cleaned, including inside the bins, once a week, preferably after collection. Strict guidelines for staff regarding waste receptacles, wheelie bins to have lids closed at all times and not to be overfilled. Currently, although the waste has improved since the complaint to Shared Regulatory Services, the bin lids are still ajar because they're overfilled. So consequently, we're still getting wafts of rotting food, which is very off-putting and doesn't allow my father to sit outside. The bin area, we've noted, doesn't have a a drain to require or to clean and empty residual fluids from the wheelie bins, bottle bins to be emptied and collections to be at a set time. And that is quite clear because the bottle bank collections are horrendously disturbing. And that is it. If you want anything in writing, I can submit that as necessary to the licensing committee. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Mr. Gray. Does any other member online? I can't see anybody else wants. Oh, Mr. Murray, you want to present something, do you?
Thank you, Chair. I would strive to be as brief as possible. I would just like to draw the committee's attention to the nature of the area in which this application is located. I think that is the key issue, that this is a very quiet residential area. And I would invite the committee to look on Google Maps Street View at where the Salures restaurant is in Cardiff, which they refer to as running something which doesn't cause any issues. That restaurant is on a busy street surrounded by commercial premises. This is a very different area. And I will, a number of people have already said this, but the late night licensing is simply not appropriate. And I would urge the committee to reject that aspect of the application. And I will stop there because I think everything else has already been said. Thank you.
Thank you. I cannot see any other hands raised. Does any committee member wish to ask any questions or seek any clarifications on the cases presented? I can't see any other members. No. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. I will now move on to the next item, which we're asking interested parties if they wish to sum up. And I would ask if they could do that briefly, please. Obviously, the responsible authorities are not present, so I refer to the interested parties that have probably already spoken. No summing up? Thank you very much. So I now ask the applicants or their representative to make a brief closing statement summarising the case and any closing remarks.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll be brief. You have heard candidly the most extraordinary list of anxieties and concerns and reference to a wide variety of legislative formats and proposals that extend way beyond the Licensing Act, I would suggest. What we do know about this application is, first of all, it is a premises that has historically been licensed for a number of years and has seemingly failed commercially on some previous occasions, as recently as, I think, October of 2024, when the license was last surrendered. If that license hadn't been surrendered, I question whether any of us would actually be here. There are conditions proposed within the application, and the police representation sets all of those out, as well as the 3 additional conditions dealing with waste deliveries and staff conduct that we have proposed and I've mentioned to you earlier, and that's all set out in Appendix E, as well as the police representation. And we say that those are reasonable, proportionate, measured, and appropriate, being the key consideration for a license of this sort. The determination that you'll come to make, and your legal officer will no doubt advise you, focuses only on the licensing objectives. So prevention of crime and disorder, on which it is accepted that the police are the experts. Noise, on which it would generally be accepted the environmental health team are the experts. The garden, in respect of noise, which we have proposed is to be closed at 8 p.m, 10 p.m, and 11 p.m. Fridays and Saturdays. And I would, in passing, say I'm afraid that tranquility and its protection is not the prevention of public nuisance. The public safety and protection of children from harm objectives, whilst raised, I am afraid I don't accept that they're legitimate or relevant in all the circumstances. This has been a hotel for many years, and the references to children. Again, your legal advisor will advise on the guidance and the policy don't appear relevant here. There are lots of issues that are raised, dozens of issues that are raised as a means of objecting to this application, but I would suggest this application boils down to one issue, and that is the issue of 1 a.m. on Fridays and Saturday nights. We know that the premises has been licensed until 12 midnight for a number of years, and we know that there were no complaints, issues or problems as far as we can see with that. The question then is 1 a.m. legitimate? And in the knowledge that the outside area is closed significantly earlier than that. And we say unashamedly it is. It's 2025. Each application is determined on its individual merits. Officers have considered this, and whilst we're respectful of the fact that there are anxieties, concerns and objections, our position is clear. Those anxieties will not materialise. We can operate these premises in a neighbourly manner, in good order with our residents, as indeed the previous operators of the same site have successfully done. And we will invite you to grant the licence with the conditions that we have discussed. The only one condition that I would add that has not been proposed, but it may be that it is attractive to the committee to attach this, and we would happily offer this, is that contact details be made available for management on site for any resident to contact during licensable activities, such that if something were to be of concern, they'd have the opportunity to raise it directly with the premises. And we will either happily circulate that contact details through your licensing service or directly to the residents, or as you advise, but there would be no objection to that. We are keen to engage, but we can manage these premises, and the numerous anxieties and concerns we say unashamedly will not materialise. And I suppose the final point to make is, and if they do, you can be reasonably confident we're going to be observed fairly carefully and closely by a number of these residents. And the point about a licence review will be known to the committee. If we don't deliver to our promises, then we will no doubt be embarrassed to be back before you before too long, if that ever arose. So we invite you to grant the application. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't know whether Mr. Gray wants to come in and say something. I will let you have this last chance.
Yeah, I would, if I may, Chair. Mr. Phipps hasn't grasped the reality by still saying we don't see it being a problem. He's not listening to the objections at all. And, you know, as I've said in the representation letter, it was quite clear that they would support and modify to the objections made, and yet he's still saying no. So I'm led to believe that we're going to have a bit of a fight on our hands. So thank you for your time. I'll let you finish and make your decisions. I thank the committee for hearing my representations on behalf of my father, and I thank the rest of the residents for also being available. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I will now ask our fellow committee members whether they wish any further clarifications on any of the points raised. I cannot see either. Oh, Richard, you want to come in?
Yes, Chair. Just in line with the hearing regulations, I want to make sure that Mr. Phipps has any final say, as that's how matters should be conducted. Obviously, Mr. Gray has just made a further point.
Mr. Phipps,
that's kind, Mr. Price. But all Mr. Gray really, the point on which perhaps Mr. Gray and I do agree, if it's the only point we agree on, is we don't agree, and so I don't know there's anything for me to add. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Phipps. Right, thank you, everyone. I'll now advise you that the subcommittee will now retire to deliberate in private, accompanied by our legal officer and committee clerk. Our officer will now advise everyone of the next steps and procedures. So I thank everyone for your attendance today and participation. So I'll hand it over to our officer.
Yes, as the chair has indicated, the subcommittee will retire now and reach their decision. That decision will be provided within the next 7 working days. I anticipate that the decision will probably be issued in a lot shorter period than that.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask for a short break for the committee, because obviously we'll need to hear your deliberations, but we'll have to ask the members of the public to leave, and we'll need to close the meeting while that takes place. So if you can bear with us for a second, we'll be back online in a moment. So if you don't mind, if you could turn your camera off, and I'll call you back in a moment.